Teni, I love you so much. You are my everything, and I will never play you, I promise.
It all started with one smile. The kind of smile that could make you forget every warning your mother had ever given you. If only she had listened, everything that happened next could have been avoided. In the busy heart of Lagos, where traffic never slept and every street carried a new dream, lived a talented interior designer named Teni. People said she could walk into an empty apartment in Lekki and turn it into something that looked like pure magic. Landlords loved her, clients trusted her. She worked hard, stayed humble, and believed that the best things in life took time to build. Then she met Folarin. Folarin was the kind of man who knew exactly what to say. He was handsome, confident, and always dressed like someone whose future was brighter than tomorrow. He never boasted about money. Instead, he spoke about vision, about loyalty, about building an empire with the right woman beside him. Every conversation felt like a beautiful Lagos sunset by the waterfront. Before long, they became inseparable. Weekend dinners in Victoria Island, long evening drives across the Third Mainland Bridge, sweet conversations that lasted until midnight. Teni felt she had finally met a man who understood her heart. But slowly, something changed. One day, Folari would flood her phone with loving messages and surprise gifts. The next day, he would disappear completely. No calls, no texts, nothing. Then, just when Teni became worried, he would return with a heartbreaking story. Business pressure, family problems, important meetings. Somehow, before the conversation ended, she always found herself apologizing for simply asking where he had been. She told herself successful men carried heavy burdens. Maybe she just needed to be more patient. She had no idea that patience was about to become the most expensive mistake of her life. As Folarin's business began to grow, Teni became her loudest cheerleader. She celebrated every small win as if it belonged to both of them. When he rented a new office in Ikoyi, she transformed the empty space into a beautiful workplace without collecting a single naira. She spent countless evenings arranging furniture, preparing presentations, and making sure every meeting looked professional. Her friends laughed. Teni, are you his girlfriend or his business partner? She simply smiled. Love was about supporting each other, wasn't it? But little by little, the atmosphere changed. Big decisions were suddenly made without her. Folarin would announce them after everything had already been finalized, yet he still expected her to sacrifice her weekends whenever he needed help. Whenever she asked simple questions, he would flash that calm smile that always melted her anger. You think too much, Teni. If she mentioned that his stories no longer matched, he chuckled. You worry over nothing. If she asked why he kept coming home late, he sighed dramatically. So, you don't trust me anymore? Before she knew it, the conversation would somehow become about her mistakes instead of his. And every single time, Teni ended up saying, I'm sorry. She apologized for asking questions. She apologized for feeling confused. She even apologized for trusting her own instincts. The lively woman who once walked confidently through Lagos, giving instructions to contractors and decorators, slowly became someone who questioned her own thoughts before speaking. Without realizing it, Folarin wasn't just changing the relationship. He was quietly teaching her to stop believing herself. And while Teni was busy doubting her own mind, Folarin had already begun preparing the next move that would change her life forever. A few months later, Folarin came home bursting with excitement. His eyes sparkled. His voice was full of confidence. Teni, this is it. This is the opportunity that will change our lives forever. He spread documents across the table and spoke with so much passion that she could almost see the future he described. A major property project, serious investors, massive profits. He claimed everything was almost ready. There is only one final approval meeting left, he said with a reassuring smile. After that, every document will be completed. We are so close. Teni's heart raced. She imagined the two of them building a beautiful future together, a successful business, a happy home, children running through a house she had designed herself. Without hesitation, she made the biggest decision of her life. She invested almost every naira she had saved from years of designing homes across Lagos, money she had earned through sleepless nights, difficult clients, and endless site inspections. The day she transferred the money, Folarin celebrated like a king. He took her to an elegant restaurant in Victoria Island. Soft music played in the background. He raised a glass and looked into her eyes. You believed in me when nobody else did. I will never forget this. Teni smiled through happy tears. She truly believed they had entered a new chapter. A chapter built on trust. But just a few days later, everything changed. Whenever she asked about the investment, Folarin's answers became strangely short. The process is ongoing. The lawyers are handling it. We'll talk about it later. The man who once couldn't stop talking about their dream suddenly had nothing left to say. And deep inside Teni's heart, a quiet fear began to grow. The signs became impossible to ignore. One Monday morning, Folarin arrived wearing an expensive designer suit Teni had never seen before. A few days later, the old car he always complained about disappeared. In its place stood a sleek luxury SUV. He simply smiled. Business is finally paying off. Soon he started traveling almost every week. Abuja today, Port Harcourt tomorrow. Sometimes he claimed he had meetings in Dubai. Other times he barely explained where he was going. Whenever Teni asked for an update on the investment, the answers were always polished. The lawyers are still reviewing everything. The government approval is taking longer than expected. The paperwork is almost ready. There was always another excuse, always another delay, always another promise. One evening, while they sat together on a balcony overlooking the bright Lagos skyline, Teni gathered the courage to speak. Folarin, can I at least see the latest documents? He looked at her for a moment. Then he laughed softly. My love, every successful investment needs patience. His smile never disappeared. But if you keep doubting me, how can we build a future together? Those words hit her harder than she expected. Once again, she felt guilty. She lowered her head. I'm sorry, she whispered. From that day, she stopped asking so many questions. Not because she fully believed him, but because every conversation ended the same way. She walked away feeling ashamed for expecting honesty from the man she loved. She had no idea that the truth was already much closer than she imagined. And one ordinary afternoon, a single conversation she was never meant to hear would destroy every illusion she still had. One quiet afternoon, Teni drove to Folarin's office in Ikoyi with fresh design samples for the reception area. She wanted to surprise him. The receptionist smiled. He's in the conference room. Teni walked down the hallway. Just as she reached the closed door, she heard laughter. Not ordinary laughter. The kind of laughter people share when they think nobody is listening. She stopped. One voice belonged to Folarin. The other belonged to one of his business associates. Then she heard the words that made her blood run cold. You don't need people to respect you. You only need them to believe you. Folarin laughed. The room erupted with laughter. He continued proudly. Feelings are far more profitable than businesses. Once people become emotionally attached, they stop asking questions. Convincing them is the easiest part. Another round of laughter. Teni froze. Her hands trembled so badly that the design samples nearly slipped to the floor. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't move. The man who had promised to build a future with her was laughing about trust as if it were a joke. Quietly, she turned around. She walked out of the office without making a sound. She didn't call anyone. She didn't cry in the car. She didn't send angry messages. The tears only came after she reached home. She sat alone in the silence. Then, something inside her changed. The woman who had spent months trying to save the relationship disappeared. In her place stood someone calm, someone focused, someone who no longer wanted explanations. She wanted the truth. And from that very moment, Folarin stopped being the love of her life and became the biggest investigation she would ever carry out. The next morning, something felt different. Teni smiled just as she always did. She answered Folarin's calls with warmth. She laughed at his jokes. She even wished him good luck before his meetings. To Folarin, everything looked normal. He had no idea the woman standing before him had completely changed. From that day, Teni became two different people. The loving girlfriend he expected and the quiet investigator he never saw. Every bank transfer he had ever asked her to make, she saved the receipts. Every voice note filled with promises, she kept it. Every text message, every email, every draft contract, every document he had ever sent her, nothing escaped her. Late at night, while Lagos slowly grew quiet and the distant sound of traffic faded, Teni sat alone with her laptop, connecting pieces that never made sense before. Then she noticed something strange. Folarin constantly talked about wealthy investors who were supposedly funding the project, but whenever she searched deeper, their names led nowhere. No companies, no business records, no real profiles, nothing. One after another, they simply didn't exist. Her heart pounded. The partners were only stories. The investors were only names. The business was built on carefully crafted lies, designed to make people feel safe before asking them for money. Teni slowly closed her laptop. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Not because she still loved him, but because she finally understood the painful truth. She had never been helping Folarin build a dream. She had been helping him build a trap. And the more evidence she uncovered, the more she realized she might not be the only person who had fallen into it. Teni knew she could not fight this battle alone. Instead of confronting Folarin, she quietly contacted an experienced accountant. The recommendation came from a former client whose family trusted him completely. They met in a small office on the mainland, far away from the places where Folarin was usually seen. For days, they examined bank records, contracts, payment trails, and company documents. The deeper they looked, the darker the picture became. "This is not the first time," the accountant said softly. Teni's heart skipped a beat. He placed several files on the table. Different names, different cities, different businesses, but the same pattern. Folarin would charm a hard-working woman. He would make her believe they were building a future together. Then he would introduce a life-changing investment. She would invest everything she owned. Soon after, he would disappear, the company would collapse, and another victim would be left with nothing but shame and unanswered questions. Teni covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. She wasn't his first. She wasn't special. She wasn't the only one who had believed every promise. She was simply his latest target. For a moment, she blamed herself. Then she looked again at the evidence. Every lie, every fake agreement, every broken promise. The guilt that had weighed heavily on her heart finally disappeared. This was never her fault. She had loved sincerely. He had planned carefully. As she closed the final file, her eyes no longer carried sadness. They carried determination. At that very moment, across Lagos, Folarin was happily preparing for the biggest celebration of his career, completely unaware that the woman he thought he had defeated was about to walk into that celebration with a plan that would change everything. A week later, Folarin made a grand announcement. His new property development company was ready for its official launch. Billboards appeared across parts of Lagos. Elegant invitation cards were delivered to business owners, community leaders, journalists, and wealthy investors. Everyone was talking about the event. This is the beginning of a new era, Folarin proudly declared. He wanted the ceremony to be perfect, and above all, he wanted Teni standing beside him. "You believed in this dream from the beginning," he told her with a warm smile. "It would mean everything to have you there." Teni looked into his eyes, the same eyes that had once made her feel safe. Now they revealed nothing but deception. Yet she smiled politely. "Of course," she replied. "Wouldn't miss it." Folarin's face lit up with excitement. He believed she had finally stopped questioning him. He believed she was ready to enjoy the success they had built together. That evening, he proudly rehearsed his speech in front of the mirror, practicing every word about honesty, vision, and trust. Teni watched quietly. She even applauded when he finished. "You'll do wonderfully," she said. He thanked her with a hug, never noticing the sadness hidden behind her smile. As he dreamed of applause, headlines, and new investors, Teni was thinking about something entirely different. She had already decided exactly what she would do. By the time the ribbon was cut, nothing in Folarin's life would ever be the same. The morning of the grand opening arrived. Lagos woke up buzzing with excitement. Luxury cars lined the entrance to the new office. Cameras flashed. Guests admired the beautiful decorations, and soft music filled the air. Teni arrived looking calm and elegant. No one could guess the storm she carried inside. But before she stepped into the venue, she made one important stop. She walked into the office of investigators handling financial crimes and placed a neatly arranged file on the desk. Inside were bank transfer records, voice recordings, messages, draft contracts, financial statements, every piece of evidence she had patiently collected. She did not raise her voice. She did not beg. She simply said, "The truth is in these documents." She trusted the evidence to speak for itself. After that, she left quietly and drove straight to the ceremony. When she arrived, Folarin greeted her with a broad smile. "There you are," he said happily. "I knew you would never let me down." She smiled back. "I told you I would be here." Guests admired them as they stood side by side. "What a beautiful couple," someone whispered. "If only they knew," another guest joked, laughing softly. Neither of them understood how true those words were. Folarin stepped onto the stage with the confidence of a man who believed the whole world was about to celebrate him. The hall became quiet. He smiled at the audience. He spoke about hard work. He spoke about integrity. He spoke about honesty. Every word sounded perfect. The guests nodded with admiration. Some investors even clapped before he finished. Then, the entrance door slowly opened. Several investigators walked into the hall. They did not interrupt his speech. They waited patiently until he thanked the audience and accepted the loud applause. Then they approached him. The lead investigator held out official documents. "Mr. Folarin, we need to speak with you." The smile on his face disappeared. The room fell into complete silence. Guests looked at one another in confusion as the investigators began presenting financial records, fake investment agreements, bank transactions, and witness statements linking him to years of carefully planned deception. A shocked gasp swept across the hall. One investor quickly stood up. "I invested in this project yesterday." Another guest stared at the documents. "Wait, this happened to my cousin too." A woman at the back of the hall burst into tears. She recognized details that matched the money she had lost years earlier, but had been too ashamed to report. Within minutes, the joyful celebration collapsed into chaos. Investors rushed to withdraw. Journalists pointed their cameras in a completely different direction. The microphones that were meant to celebrate Folarin's success were now recording the biggest scandal of his life. Then, in the middle of the confusion, Folarin slowly turned his head. His eyes searched the crowd until they found Teni. She was standing exactly where he had left her. Calm, silent, watching everything unfold. And the expression on her face made him realize she had known all along. Folarin looked at Teni with eyes full of confusion. He expected her to cry. He expected him to defend him. He expected at least a little sympathy. Instead, she quietly walked toward him. The entire hall watched in silence. "Teni," he whispered. "Why?" She looked at him for a long moment. Then she gave a small, peaceful smile. "I should be thanking you." The room became even quieter. Folarin frowned. "Thanking me?" She nodded. "Before I met you, I believed that being kind meant trusting everyone. I believed love was enough. But you taught me something I will never forget." A tear rolled down her cheek, but her voice never shook. "You taught me that kindness without wisdom becomes an invitation to exploitation. No shouting, no insults, no revenge, just the truth." She turned around and walked toward the exit without looking back. As she stepped outside, the warm Lagos breeze touched her face. For the first time in years, she felt free. Months later, Teni rebuilt her life from the ground up. She opened a respected interior design firm that helped young entrepreneurs create beautiful businesses without losing their independence. Her reputation became stronger than ever. Clients returned. New opportunities came. Her smile returned too, but this time, it came from peace, not promises. She no longer measured love by sweet speeches, expensive dinners, or grand dreams. She measured it by consistency, by honesty, by peace of mind. And that simple lesson became the strongest foundation she had ever built. Because sometimes the greatest victory is not watching the person who hurt you fall. It is finding the strength to rise again. What a heartbreaking journey. Teni lost her money, her trust, and the man she thought she would spend her future with. But in the end, she discovered that the truth will always find its way into the light. The lesson from this story is simple. Love should never require you to ignore your instincts. Trust is earned through honesty, consistency, and actions, not beautiful words and empty promises. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Elodie Tales for more emotional, dramatic, and unforgettable stories inspired by real-life lessons. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next episode. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.